everyone, it's Emily Graziano here, and I know that if you saw my previous video about my Kino Lorber haul, that I wanted to make my next Kiss video about my least played and favorite Kiss songs, in my opinion. But I had to make this video just because I feel I had to while my thoughts were still really fresh about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Kiss documentary that aired on the 27th and 28th of this month in June of the year 2021. There's a lot of thoughts, and I don't want to make this a tangent video. I don't want to make this a video of saying I hate the band, blah, 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 blah. But, sorry, just had to pause it for a moment. I thought I was going to, like, seriously sneeze, and I sneezed, like, super loud. But anyway, I feel as if I just had to make this video while my thoughts were very fresh and authentic and I wasn't scrambling to find my thoughts. So let's get into the good, and there was some good in this video, in this documentary. Paul and Gene really mentioned some truths of the band. Like, Gene admitted, yes, I wasn't in the band in the 80s. Paul admitted... Oh, actually, I don't know what Paul admitted his faults for. But Gene really dug deep, and he admitted some of his faults of his mistakes in the band. Particularly the I Was Mr. Hollywood in the 80s, and some just, you know, general things that he wanted to get off his chest. And that was very, very big of him to admit, hey, yeah, I screwed up. I thought that the non-makeup era, getting about an hour on night 2, was really refreshing for a band who pretends like it didn't exist. They pretend like the 1980s non-makeup era was non-existent, and I thought that was very cool for that era to get at about an hour. It was very, very eerily cool that Paul and Gene were at Electric Lady. That was a cool aspect. I mean, do you wish that it was all 4 of them at Electric Lady reminiscing? Hell yes! But the fact that Gene and Paul were able to get there for this documentary at a time when maybe, you know, things were shut down, blah, 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 for them to get there and to film a segment, a portion of that there, that was really, really cool, and I think a highlight for maybe a lot of us who watched. I thought they mentioned Eric Carr, the time that they spent on Eric Carr talking about him, mentioning him. That was a good segment, and they did pay tribute to him. I didn't like some of the comments Paul made about Eric, but I will get into that in, like, the next segment and stuff. I find it very interesting that they let Tommy Thayer talk about some of the truths of his music career. Like, they let Tommy mention he was in Black and Blue. Of course, they don't let him mention, yeah, I played Ace in a cover band called Cool Gin. And yet they don't let him mention that he, you know, got Peter his spaghetti, that he got the coffee, that he cleaned Paul and Gene's houses and he painted their houses. Maybe even cleaned too. I don't know. Maybe he did clean their houses. You know, painted them, their houses, clean the gutters and all that stuff. He didn't mention that, but I thought it was very interesting that they let Tommy delve into, like, his origins, his musical origins, because a lot of people, they don't know that, so that was very interesting. I'm pretty sure there's some other good aspects of the band. Oh, just off the top of my head, the footage that they had, like the unreleased music video footage, that was interesting. Messy, but interesting to see nonetheless. Some of that, just the early footage again, and the nostalgia aspect of those old commercials and old footage, that was very interesting. The fact that they didn't... No, I'm sorry. The fact that they were able to dig deep within themselves a little and admit some of the truth, even though it wasn't the full truth, admit this happened, that was very refreshing. Now the bad. Paul's ear. Paul, I understand that in life you had a deformity and that it set you back as a child. I understand that because I, myself, I didn't have a deformity, but I know what it's like to be an outsider in the world. Being an immigrant as a child, thinking that people, you know, didn't automatically believe that I could speak English when I was little. Like, it does make you feel horrible. It does. I actually knew someone that I grew up with in elementary school, someone I came home who was adopted in the same group as me, who did have microchip. But guess what? Today, she's had it fixed. She just goes on with her life. She doesn't bring it up every 5 seconds. That would be like me bringing up every 5 seconds. Oh, guys, remember, I was an orphan for the first year of my life, and I didn't have anyone taking care of me, and that ruined my life. That would be like me mentioning that every 5 seconds on my channel. I don't. It's a part of me. I'm learning and have learned to get along with it in the world. And it will always be a part of my story of who I am. But I don't preach that to you guys every 5 minutes. Glossing, let's get back over to the next part, sorry. Glossing over some of their best albums. Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun, Alive 2. They basically did not mention that much of the Alive 2 era. But they did mention Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. I will say that was a good thing. They never talk about it. And for them to show footage of Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park on television was amazing. So that's part of the good. But yeah, the fact that they glossed over Creatures of the Night. Crazy Nights. I just wrote CN. That could be either. Crazy Nights. They didn't really mention that. They only mentioned... it was very pick and choose, if you will. Paul saying at first when they got Eric in the band, Eric wasn't really accepted by the fans that well. In my own experience, and disclaimer, I was not alive in 1980s, so 79, 80, when he first joined the band, so I can't really speak for myself, but according to a lot of people that I know, just within the community on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, a lot of people did take to Eric Carr. It was that respectful thing of you could love both. Peter Criss is awesome, but I still like Eric Carr. I like all the members. I think at that point, at least for my mom at least, she liked both. And what Paul said on The Kids Are People Too, it's like, and this is a total BS answer, looking back now, it's all like when a brother or sister moves out of the home, it's not like you don't see them anymore. You still love them. You just don't see them anymore as much as you used to. I think that kind of resonated with a lot of people. I'll stop ranting. Okay. I also thought it was really bad that kind of some of the formatting of how they did the documentary, where it was just, like I said, pick and choose. We're going to talk about this, but not this, and we're going to go into that, but not this. And maybe part of that is time restraints. How much can you fit into a 4-hour program with commercials, which probably knocks it down to maybe 3 hours or so. So I get that. I'm sorry, guys, I dropped my notes. That could be time constraints, but maybe you just could have formatted it better to mention every album. That was pretty bad. And now let's get into the real ugliness. Oh, geez. I hope I still have followers after this. I really do. The Peter and Ace constant bashing. Newsflash, Paul and Gene are not perfect. I know. So shocking. They are just as equally responsible for screw-ups in the band as Ace and Peter. Gene checked out in the 80s. Paul has an enormous ego, and today he can't carry the band. So maybe in the early days he had less faults, perhaps. But in the whole history of the band, he's just as equally to blame because today his voice is shot. I'm sorry, I love Paul. He was the first voice I ever heard in rock and roll. Believe me, I never heard anyone singing ever until I heard Paul Stanley. I never heard anyone singing until that point. So the constant Ace and Peter bashing was just pathetic. And you knew they were going to bring it up, especially like around the late 70s and early 80s period when when Peter and Ace did leave the band for the first time. But it's just like, you guys are just beating a dead horse for the fun of it, please. And the worst part is the casual average person out there is going to believe all that. Okay, moving on with the badness, Paul barefoot in those segments of him and Gene together. No, okay, no. I was just like, why is Paul barefoot? No, it doesn't go with his vibe. It didn't go, like, what is the point of that? Like, it was just random. Like, maybe not everybody noticed it, but I'm kind of that person that likes to point out everything. I'm like an analytical person. I'm like, why is Paul barefoot? It bothers me. Why is Paul barefoot? And I couldn't get around that. I'm sorry. If you didn't notice it and it didn't bother you, that's cool. But it certainly caught my attention, and I was like, why is Paul barefoot? Why is he barefoot? Okay. The cheesy stock music and the credits. And the constant, it's like driving in a car with two tires that were about to blow at any time. Really? I think Paul is equally as responsible in that car, because you can be a good driver, but if a car starts to skid, there's only so much you can do to save it. Like, Paul, maybe you're not a good driver. Maybe you could have been a better driver in that car. I don't know. It just bothered me. And especially the stock footage of the plane crashing and blowing up into flames. Was that really necessary in part 2? Was that really necessary? I mean, come on. That was just pathetic. And now I'll mention the other ugly part, especially in part 2, towards the end. Tommy Thayer. Oh my god. I wanted to just rant on Twitter, but I didn't, because Twitter is quick to remove you if you start any wars with people, and I didn't want that. Like, I would put out some opinions on Twitter like, oh, this may be an unpopular opinion, but Psycho Circus is actually an important record to my childhood and to me. It's kind of like the dynasty of my childhood, but that's not gonna incite wars with people. It's not like I'm bashing Psycho Circus or Dynasty, or it's not like I'm gonna get people in a rage because I said that. If I would have said anything about Tommy, I could have started some wars with people who are like totally in love with Tommy, and I didn't want to do that. So I have to get it out here. He incensed me so much, and he's like, oh yeah, I got to almost that moment when Ace missed the planes, and Tommy contacted Doc, and Doc said, well, Tommy, you gotta suit up. And then Tommy, like, saying, okay, this is it, this is a moment, acting like he's all proud and it's all glorious. Tommy, shut up. That is not a proud moment. That is not a proud moment at all. That's a pathetic moment. He claims he's such a fan of the band, and he did in night 1. He did claim, oh, I was a fan of the band when I was like 13, blah, blah, blah. I saw them, blah, blah, blah. Anybody out there who got to replace their guitar hero, their idol, that would not be a proud moment. That would be a daunting moment. That would be a pathetic moment. That would be but I don't want to replace that person because they're my idol and they're amazing moment. I mean, no. No, 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 no. Did I mention no? Okay? Okay, I'll calm down a little bit. And then, when Tommy mentioned I put on the makeup as a kid, so it's not my first time doing it, it's like, shut up. Please, shut up. Just shut up, because I'm sure a ton of you watching, if you were a fan when you were a kid in the 70s, or even now, putting on the Kiss makeup has been a ritual for a lot of fans out there to go to concerts or Halloween, or if they want to do a tribute band or they're doing it just for fun. It's a ritual. But I'm pretty sure almost none of those people would ever dream of, I'm going to replace Ace one day. It just incensed me so much. Okay. So, and especially towards the end, it got to me. And I'm really sorry if you disagree with me, or if you dig Tommy, and that's great. But I will say, the one thing that I respect Tommy for as a person is he does a lot of charity work with World War II veterans and their family, especially with his dad's legacy. He helps other people at the center that they've created in his local community. He helps them find out what happened to their family members and loved ones in World War II. If you're local to the area and you had a loved one who fought, I think that is an incredible piece of work that he is doing, and more people need to do that. My own grandfather fought in World War II, and while I've been able to discover a lot of details, I wish I had that opportunity to do what Tommy is helping other people to do with that. So that I have to praise him for, because that's just incredible. I wish I had that opportunity, really, to find out in depth. Someone helped me like that at a center like that. That would be just amazing. But as a musician, it's really hard to respect him. I think it's too easy to say, oh, I don't like Tommy Thayer. I think that's way too easy. To say I don't respect Tommy Thayer as a musician, that is where it should carry a lot of clout. I can't respect Tommy Thayer. How can I respect him? It's just an opinion, and if you love Tommy, that's great. It's your opinion, you're entitled to it, and I'm not going to convince you otherwise, because I'm not a person who likes to argue with other people over something that's kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of life. Art, Kiss is art in the grand scheme of life, and we all have our opinions. So that is just my opinion on what the ugliness of it all was. And I want to say, Bruce, I forgot to mention this in the really good category, but Bruce, I was really excited to see Bruce interviewed, because I know they couldn't get Ace and Peter, which is another ugly side of this. They couldn't get Ace and Peter, but at least they did their best with archival interviews, even though they were heavily spliced, and just inserted in, of sound bites they wanted to hear from them. They still at least were part of the documentary, but the fact that they could get Bruce, that was very respectful. Bruce, I think, is a really cool guy. He's been respectful to the band of his era. And I'm very thankful he's not playing Ace in the band. That would really ruin all of his amazing work that he's done in the band in his non-makeup years. And he gets to wave the flag for his era today, in an era that is highly underrepresented, and he's educating people about it today. And I think that's wonderful. And I really wanted to keep this video under 20 minutes, so I'm gonna stop here. I know there's a lot I didn't talk about, and I'm sorry if it was messy, but I just needed to get some of my thoughts on paper. I hope this wasn't entirely negative, because I don't want to be negative about my favorite band. Kiss has been a part of my life since I've been 2 years old, and it will forever be a part of my life. And it's coming up on 18 minutes now, and I'm gonna say thank you for watching this video. I may do a part 2 that's a little bit more structured, so maybe be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for my next video of my least favorite songs, least played songs, and I thank you for watching. I'm Emily Graziano. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.